Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. Tonight we delve into a quiet house, nestled amongst whispering trees and forgotten paths. A house where the silence holds its breath, and the past is not merely history, but a presence. It is a place where the known world gives way to the inexplicable, where curiosity becomes an anchor, dragging you down into depths you never imagined. Prepare yourself for a journey, not into the darkness outside, but into the shadows that bloom within the mind, nurtured by secrets that refuse to stay buried. This is a story of inheritance, not just of property, but of lingering truths and the thresholds that guard them. It is a descent measured in heartbeats, marked by the discovery of something that should not be. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now, let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. Section 1. The deed is done. The keys are heavy in your palm, and this house, inherited from a distant, seldom mentioned relative, now belongs to you. It stands on land that feels too still, under a sky that seems perpetually gray, even when the sun is high. You spend weeks sorting through dusty boxes and cobwebbed furniture, the air thick with the scent of disuse and mothballs. Then, you find it, tucked away in the farthest corner of the forgotten cellar, behind stacks of rotting firewood and beneath a sagging tarp, is a door. It is low, perhaps 4 feet high, made of dark, heavy wood bound with iron. It has no handle, no keyhole visible at first glance, just solid, unyielding surface. You consult the local records, brittle pages that crumble at the edges. The property lines are clear, the house's history noted, but no mention of a cellar door here. You unfold the original blueprints, yellowed and smelling faintly of coal smoke. This wall, they show, is a foundation wall, solid stone from floor to ceiling. There is no opening planned, no passage indicated. This door simply does not exist on paper, yet it is undeniably there. A strange sense settles over you. Not just curiosity, but a prickling unease. It feels fundamentally wrong, like a missing tooth in a familiar smile. The air around it is noticeably colder, carrying a faint, earthy smell mixed with something sharp, like ozone or old metal. It's different from the rest of the damp cellar. You trace the outline of the door with your fingers. The wood is smooth despite its age, eerily free of dust. Along the edges, you see evidence of hasty work, mortar smeared on the stone, as if it was bricked over and then uncovered recently, or perhaps just sealed tightly from the outside. The stories from the nearest village, dismissed as local folklore about the old passage and people who simply wandered off decades ago, echo faintly in your mind. The rational part of you calls it a quirk of renovation, a forgotten storage space. But the other part, the part that feels the cold seeping from the wood, knows this is more. You feel drawn to it, compelled. Why was it hidden? What is behind it? The questions loop, tightening their grip. This door, the impossible door, becomes the focus. It is a physical silence, a solid question mark in the stone. Your initial interest sharpens, morphing into a relentless need to understand, an obsession that begins to overshadow sleep, food, everything else. The door sits there, silent, waiting for you to acknowledge the pull, to cross the found threshold. Was this curiosity innate or planted by the door itself? Section 2. The obsession with the low door grows, a cold weight settling in your chest. You find yourself drawn to the cellar at odd hours, just to stand before it. to feel the unnatural chill emanating from its wood. You run your hands over the surface again, searching for a seam, a latch, anything. This time, your fingers find a subtle line, almost invisible, outlining a smaller panel within the main door. It is recessed slightly, and along one edge, a faint vertical scratch suggests a place where something might be inserted, or perhaps where something tried to get out. You push gently on the panel. It doesn't budge, but the air around the door feels suddenly colder, sharp enough to sting your lungs. Then you hear it, a sound, faint but distinct, coming from behind the door. It is a low, rhythmic scraping, soft like fingernails on stone, followed by a sigh that seems to vibrate through the very air of the cellar. It lasts only a moment, then the silence returns, thick and heavy, but now charged with a new, terrifying possibility. You freeze, straining your ears. Nothing. Just the distant hum of the house settling, the drip of water somewhere else in the cellar. But you heard it. The scraping, the sigh. It felt intimate, impossibly close. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the quiet. A wave of dizzying doubt washes over you. Did you imagine it? The house is old, prone to strange noises. But the scraping felt deliberate, the sigh like exhaled breath. You step back, bumping into a stack of crates. The noise stops instantly. The faint, musty smell near the door has intensified, carrying a new note, something sour and metallic, like old blood or rusted iron. It clings to your clothes, a silent witness you can't wash away. The scratch mark on the inner panel of the door seems deeper now, or perhaps you are just seeing it with new, fear-sharpened eyes. It is a thin, vertical line, ragged at the edges. Was it always there? Your hands tremble. The door is no longer just a mystery. It is something active, something that makes sounds and changes the air. The psychological fracture deepens. You question your own senses, the boundary between reality and delusion blurring around this solid, silent barrier. This door is a wound in the world, and whatever is inside whispers just on the other side of the wood. Does the door keep things out or hold things in? Section 3. The memory of the scraping and the sigh stays with you, a persistent echo in the quiet corners of your mind. You return to the cellar, armed with a flashlight and a pry bar, your resolve hardening into a desperate need to see what lies beyond the low door. You work on the small, recessed panel. It resists, groans, but eventually, with a sharp crack of ancient wood, it yields inward just a few inches. A rush of the cold, sour air spills out, carrying the scent of damp earth and something else, something sweet and sickly, like decaying flowers. The flashlight beam pierces the gap, revealing not a passage, but a small, confined space, perhaps 3 feet deep. The walls are the same stone as the cellar, but slick with moisture. In the center of this tiny space, illuminated by the trembling beam, sits a single object. It is a small, wooden doll, crudely carved, with button eyes sewn on with dark thread. Its miniature limbs are jointed, and it sits hunched over, facing the small opening you've created, as if waiting. The fabric of its dress is dark, clinging to its wooden form. The doll's button eyes catch the light, seeming to stare back at you with a placid, unblinking gaze that feels impossibly heavy. This is the uncanny event, the object appearing in a space that shouldn't exist, waiting. You reach out a hand towards the doll, hesitation warring with compulsion. As your fingers brush the edge of the opening, A sudden wave of intense cold sweeps over you, colder than anything you've felt before. A cold that doesn't just touch the skin, but feels as though it seeps into your bones. Your hand recoils instinctively. The doll remains motionless, its button eyes fixed forward. A disturbing thought surfaces unbidden, sharp and clear, like a voice whispering in your ear. It was lonely. Where did that thought come from? It feels alien, not your own. This is the psychological fracture, a moment of complete internal disorientation. The doll, sitting silent and watchful in the small space, becomes a new, unsettling motif, tied irrevocably to the door. It is not just a plaything. It feels like a marker, or perhaps a guard. Was the doll placed there, or did it come from somewhere else? Section 4. The doll sits in the small space beyond the panel, its button eyes watching. You can't bring yourself to reach in and take it. Leaving the panel ajar feels like leaving a wound open. You push it back into place, but it doesn't fit snugly anymore, leaving a thin, dark line visible. The air in the cellar seems permanently tainted now with the sour, metallic smell and the cloying sweetness. You try to ignore the door, to focus on other parts of the house, but it calls to you, a silent siren song from the depths of the cellar. You find yourself wandering the upper floors, feeling a growing unease, a sense that the house itself is changing, reacting to the breach below. The house's familiar sounds begin to warp. The old pipes no longer just gurgle. They seem to hum with a low, resonant frequency that vibrates in your teeth. The floorboards creak not under your weight, but in empty rooms, a slow, deliberate step moving across the ceiling above you. One evening, as you pass the large, ornate mirror in the upstairs hallway, you catch a flicker of movement in its reflection. Turning quickly, you see only the empty hallway stretching out behind you. But in that fleeting moment, you saw something dark, huddled in the corner, something that vanished when you looked directly. The mirror, a simple piece of furniture, transforms into a chilling point of anomaly. You avoid looking into it directly now, catching only glimpses from the periphery, always half expecting to see something that shouldn't be there. The doll is no longer confined to the cellar in your mind. You catch glimpses of it from the corner of your eye, sitting on a distant bookshelf, a flicker of dark fabric near the staircase. These are clearly delusions, tricks of a tired, anxious mind. Stressed mind, yet they feel terrifyingly real. The psychological fracture deepens into paranoia, a constant feeling of being watched, evaluated by those button eyes. You question your sanity, the solidity of the house itself, the mirror, reflecting not just the room but perhaps the disturbances within you or the house, becomes a powerful, recurring symbol. It shows you things that aren't there, or are they? Is the house reflecting your fear, or is it showing you what is now truly in the house? Section. The boundary between what is real and what your mind manufactures has dissolved. The house is alive with subtle horrors. The humming in the pipes becomes a low guttural whisper when you stand near them. The creaking footsteps upstairs follow you from room to room. The mirror in the hall shows you the hallway, empty, but the reflection feels wrong, distorted, like looking through thick, wavy glass at a familiar scene. You see the shadow in the corner more clearly now, elongated and impossibly still, waiting. The cold air from the cellar seems to have permeated the entire house, carrying the faint, sour smell. The most terrifying escalation comes late one night. You are in the living room, trying to read when the small wooden doll appears. It sits on the armrest of the chair opposite you, its button eyes fixed on yours. It wasn't there a moment ago. It didn't walk. It just is there. This is the direct physical manifestation, the uncanny event crossing the final threshold into undeniable reality. Its dark dress seems damper, clinging strangely to the wood. The silence in the room is absolute, pressing in on you, broken only by the frantic beating of your own heart. You stare at the doll, frozen. Its head tilts slightly, the barest movement, and the button eyes seem to hold a depth of ancient, malevolent knowing. A wave of bone-deep dread washes over you, paralyzing and absolute. It's not just fear. It's the crushing certainty of being utterly powerless, completely trapped. This is the psychological fracture reaching its terrifying peak. The doll is real. The whispering is real. The shadow in the mirror is real. They are all connected to the low door in the cellar, the original breach. The doll is no longer just a motif. It feels like an emissary, a scout from whatever waits behind the wood. It sits there, motionless, yet its presence is a deafening scream in the quiet room. What game is it playing, or is it simply watching? Section 6. The doll is gone in the morning. The chair arm is empty. The air silent, save for the usual house sounds. But the silence is different now. It feels heavy, watchful. The fear remains, a dull ache beneath your ribs, a permanent resident in your chest. You find yourself moving through the house like a ghost, avoiding the upstairs mirror, giving the cellar door a wide berth. The sour, sweet smell lingers faintly, a haunting perfume that you can't escape. The question of what lies behind the door remains unanswered, a gaping void in your understanding. You didn't open the main door, didn't step through the small panel opening again. Yet, something crossed over. The psychological residue is profound. Sleep is a fractured landscape of disturbing images, button eyes, scraping sounds, the impossible cold. You are jumpy, seeing movement in the periphery constantly, hearing echoes of whispers in the wind outside. Was the doll real? Was any of it? The rational mind tries to reassert itself, offering explanations of sleep deprivation, stress, the power of suggestion. But the cold spots remain. The memory of those unblinking button eyes is too vivid, too sharp to be a mere dream. The low door in the cellar is still there. You avoid looking at it directly now, but you know its presence is a physical weight, a focal point for the strangeness that now saturates the house. It is the quiet heart of the mystery, the scar on the foundation. What did it want? What did the doll represent? A warning? A lure? You don't know. You don't think you ever will. The house holds its breath. You hold yours. The horror didn't explode. It simply settled, pervasive and internal. You are left with the quiet aftermath, the echoes, the gnawing uncertainty. The low door stands as a silent monument to a truth half-glimpsed, a secret that remains just out of reach, but always felt. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet. The sealed door demands attention. Days blur into a single-minded pursuit, the world outside its silent challenge fading like forgotten dreams. The house itself seems to conspire, guiding your hands, your eyes. It's not a brute force problem. It's a puzzle whispered on dust motes and felt in the cold air near the frame. You find it eventually. Not a key, not a lock to pick, but a subtle seam in the wood, almost invisible, where the frame meets the wall. It gives way under persistent pressure, a soft, grating noise like teeth grinding on bone. You feel the mechanism yield, slow and reluctant. The moment the barrier releases, before you even exert enough pressure to push the door open, the air shifts. It's not a gentle change, it's a physical impact. A wave of stale, stagnant air rolls out, thick with the smell of things long dead and undisturbed. Damp earth mixes with a deep, sweet decay, overlaid by something metallic and sharp, like old pennies soaked in rust. You gasp, the air catching in your throat, feeling less like air and more like a forgotten memory made tangible. The silence of the house, which had felt empty but present, is suddenly different, muted, as if a heavy curtain has fallen between you and the world outside. But from within the space behind the door, faint sounds begin to assert themselves. A subtle scrape, a dry whisper like paper shifting, sounds too delicate to have traveled through solid wood, yet they are undeniably there. You push the door inward. It groans, a long, drawn-out lament of protesting hinges, and swings open just enough to reveal the space beyond. It's not a room. It's a corridor, narrow and choked with a dust so profound it seems to absorb the light. The walls are the wrong color, the wrong texture. Not wood, not plaster, but something uneven and mottled, like dried mud mixed with ash, or perhaps sun-bleached bone ground fine. It is impossibly derelict, far more so than any part of the house you've seen, as if decades, centuries have passed here while only moments ticked by outside. This cannot be. The rational mind stumbles, trying to place this space within the known dimensions of the house, and fails utterly. This space exists outside. It is a pocket, a tear, a place where the normal rules of reality are suspended, or perhaps simply do not apply. The seal wasn't just a lock, it was an anchor to here, a place untethered. The open door is no longer merely an opening. It is a threshold, shimmering faintly in the oppressive air, a veil between two states of being. It feels less like an invitation and more like a challenge, potentially hostile, simply by existing. A tremor runs through you, a conflicting tide of emotions. The thrill of finally opening the door, the culmination of the relentless fixation, is immediately dampened by a profound apprehension. This is not just discovery, it is trespass. Unease wraps around you like the stale air, cold and cloying. Rational thought dissolves, leaving only a primal sense of wrongness. The world you knew stops just beyond the doorframe, and as you stand there, the dust thick in your nostrils, the strange sounds barely audible, you see it. A subtle ripple, a heat haze that isn't heat, just beyond the opening. A shimmer in the air, itself, like static made visible, beckoning you in. The threshold is crossed. You step into a space that feels less like a room and more like an exhale of stale, forgotten air. She follows, a silent echo of your own uncertain movement. The door behind you remains open, a rectangular cutout of the world you just left. But even glancing back, the view feels strangely distant, framed by something unseen. It's as if looking out from this place warps the familiar contours of reality, blurring edges, dimming colors. The door is not just an entrance now. It is a window into a distorted reflection of what should be. The space stretches before you, revealing the full, unsettling scope of its decay. This is not the slow, natural surrender to time and dust, but a violent, accelerated collapse. Wallpaper peels in thick, fleshy curls. Furniture seems to have melted, sagging into grotesque shapes, like wax figurines held too close to a flame. A grandfather clock stands against the far wall, its face a smeared, molten ruin, hands fused together in a final, meaningless embrace. On a table nearby, a calendar is stuck open to a date 40 years past, the paper brittle and yellowed, the numbers slightly distorted, swimming before your eyes. The air itself feels thick, heavy, pressing down like a physical weight. The oppressive silence, moments ago absolute, begins to fray at the edges. Faint sounds reach you, sounds that have no place here, no human origin. A low scrape, like something being dragged across grit. A distant sigh, long and sorrowful, carrying on, air that doesn't move. Then, closer, a soft shuffling, just beyond the periphery of your vision, somewhere behind the melted chair, or within the shadows pooling beneath the ruined clock. The space is not empty. Something resides here, or lingers, subtly announcing its presence through these phantom sounds. Your mind struggles. It pushes against the evidence of your senses, trying to force this place back into the familiar box of known physics, but it doesn't fit. The decay is impossible. The sounds are impossible. The warped view through the door is impossible. A tremor starts in your hands, not from cold, but from the sheer effort of denying what you see and hear. This is the edge of unraveling, the terrifying realization that the world might be fundamentally, terrifyingly wrong. You move further into the room, drawn by a compulsion you can't name. Near the base of the warped clock, something catches your eye. Not furniture, but a small, dark bundle, half buried in the thick dust and decay. It is a journal, or what's left of one. Its cover split and pages fused together by moisture and time. You manage to pry open a few, the paper threatening to crumble to dust at your touch. The writing is faded, frantic, hinting at previous inhabitants, at events that transpired around that same 40-year mark. Mentions of the change, the waiting, and a single chilling line about the darkness that watches. An ambiguous line, left hanging in the decay, promising understanding while offering only deeper mystery. As you look up from the journal fragment, your gaze sweeps the room again. And you see it. In the corner, where the wall meets the floor, is a patch of darkness that is wrong. It is too deep, too solid, absorbing the faint light rather than merely existing in its absence. It is not just shadow. It feels like a hole in the world, a tear in the fabric of space itself. It is a recurring visual anomaly, a silent witness, and it feels like it is watching you. Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. Tonight, we explore a space where history refuses to stay buried, and the echoes aren't just sound. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now, let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. The house settled around you, a sigh of ancient timber and dust motes dancing in the sparse light. You had found it, the sealed door, hidden behind peeling wallpaper at the end of a forgotten corridor. It wasn't just locked. It was closed, final, somehow heavier than any other boundary in the dwelling. Your fingers traced the faint outline beneath the paper, a frame suggesting something solid, something deliberately concealed. A chill that had nothing to do with the draft slithered down your spine. There was no handle, no lock visible on this side, just a seamless, impenetrable barrier. The air here was different, thinner, carrying a subtle, almost sweet decay, like crushed leaves, left too long in damp earth. It clung to the back of your throat. You pulled back the paper further, revealing dark, stained wood, grained tight and unyielding. No hinges were visible, no gap. It felt like a denial, a refusal to be part of the house, yet intrinsically linked to it. Hours later, in the library downstairs, you found a journal fragment tucked into a book on regional folklore. The brittle pages spoke of a binding, a threshold, and a peculiar recurring symbol, a complex asymmetrical knot drawn repeatedly in the margin. The writing trailed off into madness or despair. You looked back up the stairs, the upper landing shrouded in shadow. Had the air suddenly gone still? An ambiguous dread bloomed in your chest, not of what might be behind the door, but of the door itself. Perhaps the ceiling wasn't to keep something in. The first sounds came subtly, indistinguishable from the house's natural groans and creaks. A floorboard on the landing above, a rustle that might be mice. But soon, the sounds grew distinct, centered always around the sealed door. A faint, rhythmic scratching, soft but persistent, like nails on wood, or something trying to worry loose a hidden thread. You found yourself standing outside the door again, ear pressed to the cool surface, holding your breath. The scratching paused, then resumed, lower down this time. It was deliberate, patient. The air here felt charged, heavy with unvoiced expectation. An atmospheric detail emerged, not just as sound, but scent. A faint metallic tang, coppery and sharp, layered beneath the dust and decay. It pricked at your senses, a silent warning. You checked the journal fragment again. The drawing of the knot seeming more intricate, more sinister, its loops interlocking like a trap. The journal mentioned whispers, not heard with ears but felt in the bone. You listened, straining, but heard only the scratching. Yet a growing sense of unease settled, a psychological fracture that began to pick at the edges of your resolve. The door wasn't just a mystery, it was becoming an obsession. Was it truly empty behind the seal? The scratching stopped abruptly, replaced by a silence that felt louder than the sound itself. You felt a presence, not seen, not strictly heard, but felt, observing your intrusion. This felt like a test. Could something truly be communicating through these subtle means? The subtlety began to fade. The scratching persisted, but now it was joined by something else. A sound like heavy breathing, slow and measured, from directly behind the sealed door. It was too deep, too resonant to be human, yet undeniably organic. You leaned closer, heart pounding, expecting it to stop as you approached, but it continued, acknowledging your presence. It filled the narrow corridor, making the air vibrate slightly. The scent of metal intensified, sharp enough to taste. You noticed the wallpaper near the door looked wetter than it had before, dark patches spreading like stains bleeding through. But there was no moisture on your fingers when you touched it. The dampness was an illusion, a visual atmospheric detail that nonetheless felt real, clinging to the air like a shroud. Your sleep grew restless, haunted by fragmented images and the persistent sound of breathing. A chilling moment of psychological fracture occurred when you caught your reflection in a window pane and saw your own eyes wide with a fear that felt ancient, not just born of this house. You spent hours poring over the journal fragment, tracing the complex knot, searching for meaning. The recurring motif felt like a key to understanding, or perhaps a warning not to. Was the breathing a sign of life, or something else entirely? You couldn't shake the feeling that the door was watching you, even from across the room. The entity within the sealed space no longer contented itself with mere sounds. Its influence seeped out, a non-physical intrusion that bypassed the ears and eyes and went straight for the mind. Standing in the corridor, the walls began to writhe, not overtly, but with a subtle, unsettling motion, like skin crawling. The space before you stretched, the floorboards elongating impossibly, the end of the hall receding into a dizzying distance. You blinked, and the distortion snapped back to normal, leaving you disoriented, breathless. Even when you were in other rooms, the space beyond the sealed door would bleed into your peripheral vision, a distorted glimpse of darkness or shifting patterns just at the edge of sight. Auditory hallucinations intensified. Whispers, clearer now, calling your name in a multitude of voices, some familiar, some utterly alien. You heard echoes of events that felt too real to be ghosts. A woman crying, heavy footsteps, a sharp crack like breaking wood, all seeming to emanate from behind the door. Your mental state deteriorated sharply. Confusion clouded your thoughts. Simple tasks became difficult. Paranoia set in. Was someone else in the house? Were you truly alone? A frightening sense of memory loss or alteration took hold. Had you left the kitchen light on? When did you find that journal? Was the sealed door always at the end of this specific corridor? The motif of the door became symbolic of a trap, its influence inescapable, seeping into every conscious thought. The image of the knot from the journal fragment appeared everywhere, woven into the patterns of the wallpaper as it writhed, hinted at in the sound of the whispers, superimposed onto your vision. It acted as an ominous foreshadowing, a signature. Perhaps the door was never locked from the outside. The psychological intrusion reached a terrifying peak. The lines between reality and hallucination blurred until they ceased to exist. You stood before the door, the visual distortions now constant. The wood seemed to ripple like dark water, occasionally parting to reveal glimpses of something indeterminate, shifting colors or impossible geometries within. The scent of metal was overpowering, metallic dust seeming to hang in the air, catching the light. The whispers were a chorus now, a cacophony of desperate, pleading, or menacing voices, all calling your name, sometimes repeating fragments from the journal. The knot's symbolism twisted into sinister riddles. You felt a hand on your shoulder, icy cold, but when you whirled around, nothing was there. The physical sensation was undeniable, a vivid atmospheric detail that solidified the presence's reach. Your sense of self began to unravel. Who were you before this? Did you even have a life outside this house, this corridor, this door? A moment of profound psychological fracture struck when you looked at your hands, and for a horrifying instant, they seemed alien, not your own. The door loomed, the recurring motif now a physical weight, its influence a palpable force pushing against your sanity. The image of the knot was burned behind your eyelids. Was this what it wanted? To break you, to make you doubt everything you were? You felt a compelling urge, a suggestion whispered directly into your mind. to open the door, to see what was truly there. The climax passed, or perhaps you simply fell through it. The intensity receded, leaving behind not peace, but a chilling quiet. The visual distortions lessened, no longer constant, but lingering at the edges, ready to return. The whispers faded to a murmur, sometimes just a single distant voice calling your name, or the faint sound of rhythmic breathing. The silence that followed was heavy, laden with all that had occurred. You felt hollowed out, exhausted, the psychological residue clinging to you like grave dust. Your memory remained a patchwork, moments lost, others seemingly invented, the past as fluid and unreliable as the writhing walls had appeared. Unanswered questions hung in the air, silent accusations. What was behind the door? What did the knot symbolize? Was the presence still there, merely quiet now? The door remained, physically unchanged, yet irrevocably altered in your mind. It was no longer just a door. It was a scar on reality, a constant reminder of the intrusion. The image of the knot no longer appeared in hallucinations, but you saw it everywhere, in tangled cords, in tree branches, in spilled liquids. The recurring motif had internalized, etched onto your perception of the world. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet. Welcome to the Eerie Hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. This house, settled deep in the woods, with its sealed room and its secrets behind a locked door, feels ancient, burdened by years it refused to yield. It holds a quiet kind of terror, a history written not in books, but in the dust that settles undisturbed and the cold that lingers where it shouldn't. The air here is thick, weighted with presence. This is where we begin. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now, let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. You step inside, the air instantly different, thick with the scent of damp wood and something else, something sour and electrical, like ozone after a storm that never broke. The house groans around you, not settling, but shifting, as if waking. Sunlight struggles through grimy panes, illuminating motes of dust, dancing in beams that feel too solid, too heavy. There it is, at the end of the hall, a door unlike the others. It's plain, dark wood, no handle, just a lock plate scarred with age. And it feels wrong. The wood isn't just old, it feels like stone, or something colder. A shiver traces your spine, cold dread coiling in your gut. You approach it cautiously. The silence here is loud, a pressure in your ears. You reach out, your fingertips hovering inches from the wood. A faint, almost imperceptible vibration seems to emanate from within. It feels like a hum, low and steady, felt more in your bones than heard. For a moment, you lose yourself in staring at the wood grain, seeing patterns that aren't there, faces that twist away when you blink. This door wasn't just locked 40 years ago. It feels sealed, like a tomb or a wound. A thought surfaces, unbidden and chilling. What was it keeping in, or keeping out? You pull your hand back, a sudden nausea washing over you, your heart hammering against your ribs like a bird trapped in a cage. The air behind you feels colder now, and you have the distinct, unsettling sensation that you are no longer alone in the hall. The dust motes seem to dance faster in the light, caught in an unfelt current. The feeling doesn't leave. It clings to you like cobwebs, invisible but persistent. Now you hear it too, a faint, rhythmic tapping, sometimes from behind the door, sometimes from within the walls of the house itself, a soft, insistent beat that mirrors the frantic rhythm of your own pulse. You trace the sound, pressing your ear against the old plaster. It's everywhere and nowhere. The house seems to breathe with it. An oppressive weight settles over the living areas, thick and heavy, smelling faintly of forgotten things and something sharp, like ammonia. You try to distract yourself, to settle into the house, but the silence is fractured by the tapping, and the air tastes wrong. Looking at your reflection in a dusty window pane, your own eyes look too wide, too dark, like tunnels leading inward. You feel a growing detachment, watching yourself move through the house as if from a distance. Is that you, or just something wearing your skin? The door at the end of the hall seems larger now somehow. It dominates your periphery, a dark rectangle demanding attention. When you pass it, the tapping intensifies briefly, a flurry of soft knocks before settling back into its maddening rhythm. You find yourself drawn back to it, touching the cold, hard wood. The vibration is stronger now, a low thrum that feels like a trapped heartbeat. You wonder about the key. Was it lost, hidden, or simply thrown away? A desperate act to ensure the seal held. The thought chills you. What if the lock wasn't meant to keep someone out, but to keep something from escaping? The tapping continues, a quiet promise or a slow countdown. Sleep offers no respite. The tapping infiltrates your dreams, twisting familiar places into labyrinths where every turn leads you back to a locked door. When you wake, the tapping is louder, a persistent demand. The air in the house is thick with an unnatural stillness, the kind that precedes a storm but never breaks. There's a new scent now, faint but sickeningly sweet, like rotting flowers or decaying sugar. It seems strongest near the door. You find yourself standing before it again, running your fingers over the scarred lock plate. It feels warm to the touch now, pulsing slightly beneath your skin. You see glimpses in the wood grain again, not just faces, but fleeting, impossible scenes. A room filled with shifting shadows, a single unblinking eye, corridors stretching into darkness. A profound sense of loneliness washes over you, not just being alone in the house, but a cosmic isolation, as if you are the last person left in existence. Doubt gnaws at you. Why are you here? What compelled you to this house, this door? Was it curiosity or something else? Something planted deep in your mind before you ever arrived. You remember fragments of conversations you never had, promises you never made, all seemingly tied to this place, this door. A cold sweat breaks out. Your reflection in the hall mirror seems to watch you with a detached, unsettling gaze. It smiles slightly, a smile that doesn't reach your eyes. Perhaps the house doesn't want you here. Perhaps it expects you. The tapping grows more urgent, a silent accusation. The mirror is different now. When you look into it, the room behind you seems to stretch and twist, the furniture subtly rearranged, colors muted to shades of gray and bruised purple. And sometimes, in the periphery of your reflection, you see it, a fleeting glimpse of that dark, impossible room you saw in the wood grain. It's there, just beyond the glass, a silent observer. The air outside the locked room feels heavy with an unseen pressure, as if gravity is increasing in that specific spot. Even when you're in the kitchen or the bedroom, a sense of that oppressive atmosphere follows you, clinging to your skin like a shroud. You find a dampness on the walls near the door. Not water, but something slick and gray, seeping from the plaster. It smells like stagnant water mixed with the sweet decay. Your thoughts are fragmented, jumpy. You try to piece together the past, the history of the house, but memories warp and distort, filling in blanks with unsettling images and distorted truths. Was that key really lost, or was it surrendered? You remember a name whispered, a name that feels important. Tied to the 40 years this door has been sealed, but it slips away like water through your fingers. A profound fear grips you, not just of what's behind the door, but of what's happening to you. You feel your grasp on reality weakening, each moment a struggle against a tide of paranoia and delusion. The door itself seems to pulse visibly now, a faint, dark luminescence emanating from within the wood. It's calling you, whispering promises you can't quite decipher, mixing them with chilling accusations plucked from your deepest insecurities. You feel a terrible certainty growing. It isn't just waiting anymore, it is reaching. The distinction between this room and the other place, the space beyond the sealed wood, blurs entirely. You see glimpses of that impossible room constantly now, not just in mirrors, but shimmering at the edge of your vision, superimposed over the familiar walls of the house. The atmosphere follows you everywhere. You feel its suffocating weight even when you step outside. The air thick and cold, smelling of ozone and decay no matter where you are. The entity, whatever it is inside your head. It whispers your fears back to you, twisting past regrets into present horrors. You see your own reflection contorted, showing moments of weakness, failures, secrets you thought were buried deep. It's using your own mind as a weapon, blurring the lines between memory, hallucination, and this new, terrifying reality. Your psychological state is one of raw, screaming terror, a desperation so profound it eclipses everything else. Your grip on sanity is a frayed thread about to snap. You find yourself standing before the pulsing door, not with fear now, but with a frantic need to understand, to make it stop, to somehow seal it again. You press your hands against the wood, which feels terrifyingly warm, almost feverish. You plead, you demand answers, and it responds, not with words, but with a sudden, overwhelming flood of information. A horrifying revelation pressed directly into your consciousness. The door wasn't sealed to keep something in, but to protect the world from it. The 40 years were a duration, a timer set by someone trying desperately to contain a bleeding wound in reality itself. And now that it's been disturbed, now that the threshold has been acknowledged, the protection dissolves. The door isn't just the door anymore, it's everywhere. You see dark, rectangular voids in the corners of rooms, in the patterns of wallpaper, even in the empty spaces between furniture. The physical door pulses violently, the wood darkening, twisting, becoming something else, something that feels like living tissue stretched taut over nothing. The terrible truth settles. It wasn't about opening the door. It was about acknowledging it, and the acknowledgement allows it to manifest. And it is quiet now, quieter than before the tapping started, a silence that feels vast and empty, like a universe holding its breath. The house doesn't groan anymore, it just sits inert. The pulsing from the door has stopped. The wood is still dark, still feels wrong, but it is quiescent. It feels less like a door now, and more like a scar on the face of reality. The visions in the mirrors have faded, but the mirrors themselves feel tainted, their surfaces holding a memory of impossible depths. The suffocating atmosphere has receded, but the air still tastes faintly of ozone and decay, a ghost of the presence that was. Your mind is a fragile thing, like shattered glass. You remember the terrifying revelation, the truth about the 40 years and the unraveling, but it feels like a nightmare you can't quite recall in full daylight. Only the cold dread lingers. You are left with pieces, fragments of a cosmic truth that shouldn't be known. The doors are still there, of course, not the physical one only, but the shapes, the voids you saw everywhere. They are subtle now, almost invisible. But once you've seen them, you can't unsee them. They are everywhere you look. Silent reminders of the threshold that dissolved, the barrier that fell. You know you are changed irrevocably. The house is changed. The world feels thinner. You walk through the rooms, a phantom in your own life. The terror replaced by a hollow ache, a profound, unending weariness. You know it isn't over. The entity didn't leave. It just integrated. It's not behind the door anymore. It's in the silence, in the air, in the way the light falls. It's in you. The scar remains. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet. Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. They wait in the dust motes dancing in sunbeams that shouldn't penetrate such gloom. In the silence that feels thicker than any sound. In the air that seems to hold its breath, anticipating a disturbance long overdue. An old house, found far from any road, tucked deep in woods that whisper only to themselves. Inherited, stumbled upon, or perhaps simply drawn to. It doesn't matter how you arrived. What matters is the weight of the stillness here, the way the light dies prematurely at its windows, the certainty that it is not empty merely, dormant. You feel it settle on you the moment you cross the threshold. A cold cloak woven from forgotten things. The air here is different, carrying the scent of decay, damp earth, and something else, something metallic and sweet that catches in the back of your throat. It is the smell of waiting. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. The house receives you with the quiet courtesy of something ancient and unbothered. Dust lies thick on everything, a soft shroud muting the world. Each step sends motes swirling, catching the weak light filtering through grimy panes, revealing the stillness of decades. Perhaps centuries. You move through rooms heavy with the scent of old wood and disuse, guided by an unseen current, a subtle pull towards the deeper parts of the structure. It leads you down a narrow corridor, the air growing colder with each step, the silence deepening until your own breathing sounds unnaturally loud. And then you see it, not a grand entrance, but a small, unremarkable door set into the far wall. It is different from the others. Heavier wood, no handle, no keyhole visible. Just a faint line where it meets the frame, sealed tight, almost as if it had grown there. A pervasive chill radiates from it, a cold that sinks into your bones and makes the fine hairs on your arms stand on end. You reach out a hand, the wood cool and unyielding beneath your fingertips. There is no lock you can see, no apparent mechanism to open it. Yet you feel a distinct resistance, not just of wood and nails, but of something else, something intangible, pushing back. A sudden, sharp spike of unease pierces the quiet curiosity that brought you here, replaced by a potent sense of dread. But beneath the dread, a different feeling stirs, an undeniable compulsion. You find yourself pressing your ear against the cold wood, listening to the profound, unnatural silence on the other side. The door stands as a silent question, a barrier that feels less like an entrance and more like a seal. The silence behind the door is not empty. It is weighted, pregnant with stillness. You stay there for a long time, perhaps minutes, perhaps hours, time losing its usual shape in the oppressive air of the corridor. The compulsion deepens, twisting your initial curiosity into a sharp, almost painful need to know what lies beyond the sealed wood. Your mind races, discarding explanations as quickly as they form. A hidden room? A forgotten closet? The feeling radiating from it is wrong for anything so mundane. It feels contained. As you pull your hand away, your fingers brush against something tucked into the narrow gap between the doorframe and the wall near the floor. It is a small, tarnished key, heavy and ornate, unlike any modern key you've seen, its teeth strangely sharp. Finding it here, in this specific place, sends a fresh jolt through you, a mix of disbelief and a chilling sense of inevitability. It fits, of course. The key slides into an invisible slot you hadn't noticed before, a hairline crack in the wood, perfectly sized for the key's shaft. Turning it is a strange sensation, less like engaging a mechanism and more like breaking a spell. There is a soft click, a sound far too small for the weight of the door, followed by a low groan from the frame, like an old joint protesting. The air around the door grows perceptibly colder, carrying with it a new scent, damp earth, and something sweet, cloying, like dying flowers mixed with metal. It isn't the lock that holds it closed, you realize with a rising dread, but whatever is on the other side, pushing back. A faint, almost imperceptible sound drifts from the crack that now marks the edge of the door. A sound like dry leaves skittering, or maybe scratching. The urge to open it fully is now overwhelming, blotting out the cold fear that pools in your stomach. You grasp the edge of the heavy wood, the key still feeling hot and wrong in your palm. As you pull the door inward, there is no rush of stale air, no visible room. Instead, the space beyond is plunged into an impenetrable darkness that seems to absorb all light. The air that spills out is not merely cold, it is unnaturally frigid, sucking the warmth from the corridor and leaving a thick, tangible pressure against your eardrums. The low groaning from the frame deepens, joined now by a sound that feels less heard and more felt, a resonant hum that vibrates in your chest. The scent of damp earth and sweet metal intensifies, becoming nauseatingly strong, clinging to the back of your throat. Your eyes strain against the void, trying to discern shape or form, but there is nothing, only the absence of light. But the true horror isn't visual, it's auditory, or perhaps psychic. Faint, indistinct whispers begin to curl out of the darkness, not in any language you understand, but carrying the weight of ancient secrets and gnawing hunger. They are quiet, almost lost beneath the hum, but they feel close, as if they are being spoken directly into your mind. A wave of profound disorientation washes over you, making the corridor swim and tilt. For a moment, You are certain you are no longer standing, but falling into the blackness. Time warps again, stretching and snapping. How long have you been standing here, holding the heavy door ajar, breathing this impossible air? A moment of pure, unreasoning terror claws at your throat, urging you to slam the door shut, to run, to flee this impossible threshold. But you cannot. Your feet feel rooted, your hands frozen to the door. The whispers grow fractionally louder, insistent, pulling at the edges of your awareness. Some voids look back, the thought surface unbidden, chilling you to your core. The whispers are constant now, a low, persistent murmur just beneath the surface of your thoughts. They follow you as you stumble back from the open doorway, the heavy key still clutched tight, its metal somehow now vibrating in time with the hum that echoes in your bones. The void behind the door remains, a patch of impossible darkness, bleeding cold and scent into the corridor. You try to close it, to push the heavy wood back into place, but it resists, settling only partially into the frame, leaving a permanent crack, a gaping mouth in the wall. The air in the entire house feels different now, charged with a subtle, unseen energy. Lights flicker not just on the wall, but in your perception, causing brief, unsettling distortions at the edges of your vision. Was that a shadow that wasn't there a second ago? Did the pattern on the wallpaper just shift? The pervasive smell of damp earth and sweet metal seems to cling to your clothes, your skin, following you from room to room. You find yourself standing in a familiar hallway, the afternoon sun filtering through a window, yet it feels alien, wrong. A chilling sense of dissociation settles over you. You try to remember what you were doing before you found the door, before you opened it. The memories are hazy, fractured, like pieces of glass that don't quite fit together. There are gaps, large, unnerving blanks, where certain hours, perhaps even days, should be. Or maybe the memories are still there, but subtly altered, imbued with a wrongness you can't quite place. The whispers are still there, a soft sibilance promising things you don't want to hear, hinting at origins you can't comprehend. Did you step through, or did it step out? The whispers are no longer just in your mind. Sometimes you catch them on the edge of hearing, sounding as if they are just outside the room, just down the hall, always just out of sight. You find yourself speaking to yourself, arguing with the internal voices, trying to rationalize the impossible. Sleep offers no escape. Dreams are filled with impossible geometry, thresholds that open into other, colder thresholds, and the pervasive, echoing hum. A chilling calm has settled over you, a profound detachment from the person you were before. The fear is still present, a cold knot in your gut, but it is overlaid with a strange acceptance. This is what the world is now. This is the new normal. The uncanny phenomena are not terrifying anomalies, but simply occurrences. You watch your hands as they move, observing them as if they belong to someone else. The door is no longer just the heavy wood in the corridor. It is a wound in reality, a fissure that has been opened, and its essence has leached into everything. Perhaps it wasn't meant to be closed, but contained. And now the containment has failed. The immediate terror has subsided, replaced by a quiet, pervasive dread that settles deep in your bones. You are no longer in the corridor, no longer standing before the physical door, Though whether you escaped the house entirely or merely retreated to a room far from the breach is a detail lost in the haze. The horror did not end when you turned away. It merely changed form. The air still lingers, carrying that impossible scent of damp earth and sweet metal, sometimes faint, sometimes overwhelming. You catch glimpses of movement at the periphery of your vision, flickers, shifts, things that resolve into nothing when you turn your head, but leave a cold impression of wrongness. The whispers are less like voices now, and more like an atmospheric pressure, a low, sibilant hum that resonates in your skull, always present, always just below the threshold of conscious thought. Your memory remains a fragmented landscape, the events surrounding the door hazy and disjointed, bleeding into or overwriting earlier recollections. The person you were feels distant, a character in a story you can no longer quite recall. The trauma has not broken you, but reshaped you, leaving behind a chilling detachment, an observer in your own life, marked by the acceptance that the fabric of reality is thin and easily torn. The door is no longer a physical object, but a permanent psychic scar, a metaphorical threshold that was breached and cannot be resealed. It is the knowledge etched into your being that some things, once opened, can never truly be closed. The sealed horror is not gone. It is merely dispersed, a lingering psychic contamination that follows you, a chilling reminder that you are forever marked by what you found and opened. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet.